Welcome back to Established Dominance Fantasy Football. Tonight, we're going to preview the Sunday games and help you make some key decisions in your lineups. And remember to monitor us and follow us on X at Established Dominance for injury updates prior to each game. Now, here's a quick injury review from Saturday. Teams haven't really updated much today, which seems odd. Daniels looks to be a game time decision. Tua has been activated and will start. Spears is out. Dalvin Cook will play. Patterson is doubtful. Brooks is out. And then there's no update on the questionables like DJ Chark, Debo, Kittle, Disley, Tyreek Hill, McConkey, Levis, Higgins, Myers, and Flowers. Some big names there, so watch the injury reports coming in on Sunday morning. Okay, let's look at the Sunday games, which lack an international game for the first time in 3 weeks. Almost as if it's called the National Football League. Weird. Anyway, let's start off with the Lions versus the Titans. The Titans finished their fire sale this week by getting rid of their best linebacker and their best wide receiver, Hopkins. And they plan to most likely start a washed-up quarterback has-been named Rudolph against the Lions in Detroit. 911, what's your emergency? I'd like to report an illegal dumping operation. This is going to be ugly. I don't recommend starting any Titans except Pollard this week, who I surprisingly think has a decent game due to volume, especially with Spears out already. Although negative game script could kill that. 20 touches, though, is a startable prospect. Now, all Lions should be started in this game. However, with the Vegas line at minus 11.5, you could easily see your star players getting benched in the final quarter with the game out of control. So keep that in mind. The loss of Jamison Williams to suspension elevates Khalif Raymond to starter status, and I like him for 4 to 5 catches in this game. I'm not sure Laporta gains from his absence and is a questionable start as of late. Moving on to the Packers versus the Jags. I still think ETN is not going to play this game. He's limited. He's got a better shot at playing, but I think the coaching staff realizes that Bigsby healthy is better than a sub 100% ETN. Now, the Jags can be tough versus outside receivers, but give up plenty to the slot and the tight end position. So Kraft sets up as a premium play this week, along with Jaden Reed, who's been off the injury tape this week. Ingram should have another dominant game and is a must start, along with Bigsby and Thomas Jr. Now, this game has the highest over-under of the weekend in Vegas and sets up as a shootout. But look out, Green Bay. The Jags get 3 starters back on defense and may prove to be a tougher out as they get healthier. I'd still start Jacobs in this contest, of course, but it might be a tougher sledding in this one for him. Let's hope he gets a touchdown to save his week. In the Eagles-Bengals game, this is the second highest over-under in Vegas and sets up another shootout. Higgins is still questionable, but all skilled players should be started for Cincy. We did see Moss take a back seat to Brown last week, and that should continue this week. So starting Moss could be a letdown. The Eagles are healthy again, except for Goddard, who is out again this week. Calcaterra didn't really shine last week, although the Eagles focused on the run. He may get a couple catches this week, but he's touchdown dependent. Otherwise, start all skill players for Philly, and I expect a Devonta Smith touchdown this week based on the cold shoulder he got last week. In the Ravens-Browns game, the Ravens should easily win this game, but Myles Garrett is still tough, and he's going to force Jackson to run the ball. Now, Jackson should have a good game on the ground, but may not have a tremendous effort through the air. Flowers is questionable, but there's really been no update, so check Sunday morning. Henry is Henry, but Cleveland could be tough. I still think he rolls strong, but not a 100-plus game, although I think he gets a touchdown. Bateman emerged last week, but I think that was a one-off ceiling game, if for no other reason than it's because he was on the team I played last week and lost to. Cleveland will start Winston, which is the right play, but he doesn't have anybody to throw to. I expect Judy and Njoku to get plenty of targets, but the big question is Chubb. Like I said last night, temper your expectations here as he continues to come back. There wasn't a whole lot of room for him to run last week, and negative game script could limit him and his carries this week. I'd still start him, but you need to hope for a touchdown to save his week. All right, in the Falcons-Bucks, this is not the shootout you were looking for. The loss of 2 alpha wideouts for the Bucks projects a heavy run offense with White and Irving and even Tucker. McMillan should dominate targets, but Otten might receive the most looks on the team. I don't think Shepard is the play here and merely a desperation play. I'd still start Mayfield as I think he'll run more and still manufacture a startable week. Now Cousins, he had a 500-yard passing game last time. I don't think it's repeatable this time. The Bucks continue to get massacred in coverage, so he's still a strong start with London and even Pitts. Now, Algier took a backseat last week and can't really be projected week to week. Robinson is still an obvious start, but if you're going to start Algier, temper your expectations. Of note, rematches tend to settle down if they were out of hand the first time. So since these guys had a big shootout last time, I don't really think that's going to happen again because they have a better feel for each other. Now in the Cards-Dolphins game, It's the return of Tua, and we're all hoping he survives without a concussion. Now, this sets up as a boom or bust risk start for Tua, who needs to get back in the flow of the game while also protecting himself. I expect a strong dose of Achane and Mostert to keep Tua healthy and a concentrated effort on Tyreek getting him the ball. Now, we still haven't seen an update from the Dolphins on Tyreek's health, but I don't think Cheetah is going to miss Tua's comeback here. Waddle should also be a benefactor of Tua's return, but on the flip side, Jonnu Smith will fall back to a middle tier 2 tight end after his huge performance last week. Now, Murray's on the road, and everyone can see that the way to beat him is to limit his ability to hit Harrison. You're going to start Marvin, but if they double team him, it's not going to be pretty for either of these guys. Connor should find some running lanes and is a confident start along with McBride this week. Now, in the Jets-Pats game, this is a must-win for the Jets, which is sad to say, but the Patriots are totally beatable. Play all Jet skill players here. Hall is probably going to have a big game because the Patriots are terrible against the run. Look for Adams to get his first touchdown this week after extra practice, and Wilson should probably also get one. Lazard is out, so more of the targets are going to funnel to both of those two guys. And of note, Rodgers is nursing a hammy. So if the game gets out of hand early, you could see him sit in the fourth quarter. He's startable, but there are other options out there that could have a better return for you. Now, I don't recommend starting any Patriot skill players, although there's a chance some of them get like a freak touchdown. But every one of them is touchdown dependent, and May should struggle, especially with the return of Reddick. Second lowest over-under in Vegas for a reason here. Okay, in the Colts-Texans game, Richardson's going to start again. It's a downgrade again for all skill players, except JT, who's supposed to return this week. Goodson will most likely be the backup. Sermon is probably going to be the third running back off the board, and I think he can safely be benched. Now, the Colts give up a lot on the ground, so expect Mixon to have another big day, but I do expect that the Texans coaching staff is going to craft a couple plays to ensure CJ gets his touchdowns to keep his spirit up after last week's basement performance. Now, Diggs and Dell should probably both get touchdowns based on that thought process, so start them with confidence. In the Saints-Chargers game, Rattler gets another start, and Olave and Taysom Hill are back, but it's not going to be pretty against a shutdown defense in LA. Now, I know Carr is out there as a doubtful, but he's not going to play, so Rattler's going to start. I think Hill actually outscores Rattler here with a rushing touchdown, or just takes over at quarterback at some point. Olave, for me, is unstartable here unless you truly have no one else to start. I see him with maybe 3 to 4 catches, if you're lucky, a touchdown. Kamara is the best bet to score here, but more likely it'll be on a pass play versus rushing. Now, Herbert, on the other hand, he lacks quality receivers and options. Johnston looks like he's not going to play again. McConkey is questionable. Disley is questionable. Now, hopefully they both play, but this is the first game of the afternoon session, so be sure to put these players in your flex position to give you a chance to swap them out, just in case there's a surprise sit. Dobbins looks like he's kind of getting tired, and the Saints, they're not an easy out, so hopefully he gets back on track with a touchdown to save his week. In the Bills-Seahawks game, the weather in this game is supposed to be rainy with high winds, so that could impact kicking and create more turnovers. It could also force more running on the ground, which favors Walker and Cook, respectively, for each team. Metcalf is doubtful, and he hasn't been updated as of yet. I don't think he's going to play again. And if you do have him in your lineup, put him in your flex position again. It's an afternoon game. You need an option. If he doesn't go, Lockett and JSB stand to win more targets. Walker's healthy, and he's probably going to get leaned on, especially if it's raining and the weather's terrible, if they're going to win. Now, for the Bills, Kincaid should have a big game against Seattle because they give up huge games to tight ends. Cooper should have another shot to score here. Keon Coleman is startable, although they look for him for the deep ball, and if the weather and the winds are really out of control, he might not have that great of a week. Cook will continue to dominate touches unless he gets hurt. Davis is really unstartable. He's immensely talented, but he's going to take another backseat this week. For the Panthers-Broncos game, Hubbard here is the only startable player in Carolina, and that's a stretch. Missing both top wide receivers and Young as a quarterback has train wreck written all over it, versus a top 5 defense in Denver. Leggett, even though he's healthy, he's unstartable here, especially with Surtain healthy. For Denver, Nick should have a very good day. Javonte should get his carries. They're both confident starts this week. As for who's going to catch the touchdowns, Sutton is probably my best bet here. Now, with Denver favored so heavily, again, there's a chance the game gets out of hand and starters sit early in the fourth quarter, which could hurt your overall numbers. Now, I hope they get their love early, but if they exit, that could hurt you. It also means garbage time, just in case you have Hubbard. He might get a late touchdown. That's another reason why I like him here. In the Chiefs-Raiders game, all the Raiders should be benched, period. Chiefs defense is tough. Las Vegas is a train wreck. I mean, they define train wreck. Sit everybody on Vegas. The Chiefs should easily win here, which means players could exit early again, so you might lose some playing time. Hunt, he should have a decent game with a touchdown. I expect Hopkins to get some targets, possibly a touchdown as a welcome to the team. But the tight ends are going to continue to dominate. Look for Mahomes to find Kelsey and Gray, and they have a decent shot at a couple touchdowns easily. Mahomes looks like a good bet to get a couple of touchdowns this week as well. For the Bears versus the Commanders, Daniels is a game time decision, which makes it tough if your backup plays in the morning. He's generally 50-50, although I think it's more like 80-20 he doesn't play. I mean, Mariota looked pretty good last week. Even if he plays, there's a real good chance he could get re-injured while he's scrambling. It's such a risky play this week. If you have a strong backup, play him or get Mariota to cover you as a handcuff. Regardless of the quarterback, McLaurin, Robinson, and Eckler can be started with confidence. And then for Chicago, start all your skill players in a potential decent shootout game. It's only 44.5, I think, in Vegas, but it has the option to go much farther. Swift has a good chance at a touchdown as Washington has given running backs a touchdown almost every game this season. Looking for DJ Moore to get back on the touchdown horse as well, with Allen dominating targets as usual underneath. In the Cowboys-Niners game, somehow the Niners get another late primetime game against a Cowboys team with real identity issues. With Ayuk out for the season, Jennings is out this week, Debo and Kittle are both questionable. Somebody has to catch the ball. Enter Pearsall, who got shot, into the conversation. Now, I think he's too young to have a huge impact. He hasn't had enough reps, but I think 8 to 10 targets and a decent chance to score is not out of question. I expect Mason to once again carry the load, and if I had to pick, I'd say both Debo and Kittle end up playing, with Debo getting a much higher chance of a touchdown. Now, the Cowboys, they're going to face a tough defense on the road. They're playing Dalvin Cook, okay, who will not even give them a spark. CeeDee Lamb's frustration is most likely going to continue as Dak is going to get a heavy dose of blitzing. Dak's a dangerous start here, as is most of the other skill players, except perhaps Ferguson and, of course, CeeDee Lamb. But don't expect 100 plus and a touchdown out of these guys. All right, and then there's Monday Night Football. Oh, ESPN is just getting the quality games, aren't they? Giants versus the Steelers. This is going to be a snoozer, but if you've got Steelers players, you're going to be happy, I think. If you're going to play Neighbors and Singletary, don't expect too much out of them. Steelers are just playing so well. Daniel Jones is going to be running for his life. It's going to get ugly. Now, this game sets up really well for Najee, who could easily get over 100 yards and a touchdown. You saw last week Barkley just destroy the Giants. I think Najee runs roughly the same way. Probably not as fast as Barkley, but I think he has a big week. I expect that Wilson, he's probably going to get more sack than you would think, but he's going to find opportunities to get the ball to Pickens. I don't think he has a huge game like last week, but 250 yards and 2 touchdowns sounds likely. Okay, there's the Week 8 preview. There were a lot of big injuries last weekend, and you will most likely have some tough decisions this week. This week has some definite late game window questions, and then they're going to test your lineup. So be prepared, work your flex positions, and go with your gut, like I always say. Before we sign off, I want to give a shout out to our men and women in uniform who protect the freedoms we hold dear. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. And finally, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and follow us on X, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you can stay up to date on our latest content. And until then, remember, established dominance isn't just a catchphrase, it's a commitment. Are you ready?